Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Laurie Davis and Dr. Laurie Davis Show. As of yesterday, officially, we changed the name of the show for the upcoming of the honorary doctorate. And we're streaming live right now on Facebook page, Self-Worth the Missing Link Superstars. Also on YouTube, the Laurie Davis host Laurie Davis, the Laurie Davis Show. If you Google that in, you'll find me. And right here on www.e360tv.com. So we're in three big locations today, and I'm really excited about today's show. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm just welcoming some guests with me today. And I have my colleagues with me because these ladies are involved in the training right now to learn how to facilitate our up and coming Worthy Indigenous Parenting Workshop series. So let's go to Virginia Clark. Just a little intro, Virginia, a little bit about you and why you wanted to be part of this project.
Thank you, Laurie. I'm Virginia Clark. I am joining you from Lacombe County, Alberta, Canada. It's a beautiful sunny day today. And the parenting program intrigued me, the Indigenous parenting program. I worked with our local Parent Link Center for 10 years before our government did some changes and we lost our funding. So my certificates, my childhood development certificate, Kids Have Stress Too, childhood anxiety, my trauma-informed care certificates, all were still there. They needed somewhere to go. So I figured joining this parenting program and learning how to facilitate this workshop, those training that I've done in the many years that I've been working with families would be a benefit. So thank you.
Right. Your volume's just a little down, so I'm not sure what's creating that. We just had to cut. We heard you, but
Okay.
not as loudly as we normally do. Maybe because you're not yelling from the rooftops, right? All right, well, let's go to Dr. Susie Mearswick, another one of my colleagues in Self-Worth. And when I offered this up to come and be trained up to deliver this workshop, Susie was probably the first person to jump in. So over to you, Susie, for a little background.
Well, thank you for having us on your platform, Laurie. My name is Dr. Susie Mearswick, and I've been an educator for 26 years. That means that I have encountered many, many parents that were in dire need of your workshop. That includes people that have their own biological children as well as foster parents. And I saw so much fallout in the lives of those kids because of inadequate parenting. On a personal level, I'm a mother of two daughters, and I actually had to raise them during their teenage years when their dad divorced me, and I was left trying to pick up the pieces. I didn't realize it at the time, but if I had been instructed in worthy parenting as a young mother, my children wouldn't have gone through so much stress and emotional abuse as they had to suffer from the hands of their dad. And so I came to see that it has a generational component in it. And I wrote a book called Sow in Tears, Reap in Joy. You can see the banner behind me, because I know that many people can be helped if they learn better parenting skills. And unfortunately, we only imitate the role models that were shown to us as children. So all the dysfunction that we go through, we carry it on. So when Laurie said she had a parenting program, I said, wow, everybody needs to have a parenting license. They sell fishing licenses and boating licenses, but nobody has a parenting license. So all kinds of harm is done because of that.
Totally. All right, we might have another guest or two pop on here and join us shortly. So when that happens, I'll just stop everything and introduce them to everyone. I was in Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. I was involved in a wellness committee over there working on a project and was introduced to the community, and I paid a visit to the community. And I shared this because I was at a conference last week and we were asked to speak about this product. And there were 200 parents in the room. It was amazing. And so we had a captive audience. They were all on board wanting to know more. And so back to my muskeg story, about a year ago, March, I went over there for the first time and I decided I wanted to spend some time in the community. So I set myself up at the boardroom table in the health center. And I thought, I'm just going to sit here. I'm not going to, be aggressive or anything. I'm just going to see who lands. And the first person that flew through the door was Gloria Gray Eyes. And some of you've already met Gloria. And Gloria sat herself down like she owned the place. And this is how I introduced her last week. And she started talking to me about the workshops, and she wanted to participate in our retreat, Reclaiming My Self-Worth. And then she joined the core program. And she told me that very first day, she said, I am going to be one of your facilitators. I have already made up my mind. And this was before she even knew anything. So who would have known that collaboration, and I'm all about that these days, that connection would lead Gloria and I to our conference. And so we did a little outline, and there's our company name, Eagle Feather, and on the back is a little blurb about Gloria and I. And so we handed those out, and people took them, took bunches of them to take home to their community and hand out. So we were able to do that, which was really great. And so we are about to launch week 8 tomorrow night. You ladies will be involved in week 8. And we based the program on the 10 of the 17 virtues. There are actually 17 virtues in the culture, the Cree culture. So I'm suspecting there'll be a phase 2. I wouldn't be surprised at that, because you can't cover it all in 10 weeks, right? So just over to comments here. Oh, look at this. One of our GSFE sisters is listening today. Aha. Yes, we did our conference last week. Catherine, thank you for being here. This is one of our GSFE sisters in Inland Empire, California. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us. And so I know that I'm going to have to check this out, because I think it's Gloria trying to get in or something. So while I'm doing this, Virginia, why don't we go over to you and have you share maybe some of the topics that we are covering?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with the very first one, because I think it's one of the main reasons why we do what we do, which is love. Workshop number 1 is all about love. What is love? And it's a beautiful thing. Why do we need to feel loved? How can we show love to our children? And the quote is, we cannot fully love others until we love ourselves first. And that's the basis for so much of what we do already. So,
right.
Yes.
And I know that we started off with love, we're not going to end there, but what we need to recognize is that culturally, our Indigenous people have evolved from being involved in the United States, Indian boarding schools, and in Canada, the residential school system. So they were actually separated from their families. And so the whole idea of a family unit and what does it take to be a parent was lost in that big 125 years of madness, I would say, madness. Susie, let's go to you and talk about why it's important for children to have confidence. You were a kindergarten teacher, and I'm sure you did a lot of things in those 26 years to help build the confidence of your kids. So why is that so important for our young people to have lots of confidence in today's world?
Well, I'd say confidence is one of the building blocks that you build self-esteem. And you can't really get a good feeling about yourself if you lack confidence. Now, we might lack confidence in certain skills, like I don't feel confident that I could create a website on my own. I don't feel confident that I could, change out a motor in a car, but I feel confident that I can use my talents to connect with other people and help them bring out the best in themselves. And I think that if we give kids, for instance, the confidence that they can do something, that they can learn something, they are capable of it, then you just feel like their little heart gets full. They feel happy. But if you break that confidence with saying things like, oh, you're so stupid, oh, you couldn't do it, nobody like you could amount to anything, their little spirit gets crushed. And we've all seen families that use that kind of terminology. Even when you go to the grocery store, you might be seeing a parent lashing out at a little child who's crying. And they say things like, shut up, I told you to sit down and, cut it out, talking in such a demeaning way that it crushes their spirit. So, confidence is something that you have to have as the basis of your identity so that you can become whatever you're destined to be.
Totally. Totally. Okay. Well, we talked earlier about what did we base this on, and we based it on the medicine wheel traditionally, or mainstream would be the balance wheel. But in the medicine wheel, there are 4 quadrants. So spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically, and keeping those 4 areas of our life in balance. And so we use that as a foundation. I have used that as a foundation for lots of my work. But we also then took on the 10 virtues, and we picked out, Gloria chose 10 that she thought would be appropriate for the parenting workshops. So things like love, that's one of the 10 virtues. Obedience, and this teaches us to be humble. Respect, and I mean this is across the board. I don't think this is just solely for our Indigenous culture. It covers everybody. That's why any parent would benefit from being in this product. So respect, kinship. I love that one. That's about how we relate to each other and how we relate to the world and nature. Cleanliness, and this doesn't only just refer to a clean house. This is about keeping our body clean physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. So that's involved in the process. Happiness is one of the 10 virtues we talk about. Gratitude. I mean, this isn't new, is it? And strength, knowing that we have spiritual support if we're going through a hard time. So this is why I'm excited about the product, because it is across the board. And we called it on our flyer, we said, worthy Indigenous parenting for all children. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
All children need these virtues, don't you think?
Yes.
How do you relate to that? How does that sound?
It sounds crucial.
Uh-huh.
Because I've taught kids of every color and race, and it doesn't matter. That is completely irrelevant because we all have the same human needs, and the values that you've just spoken about, well, they might be claimed by the Indigenous group, but of course they're all human values that go across every group.
Yeah. But also to attach to the virtues within the Indigenous community, the meaning behind each one, is where it varies and changes because they have their own ceremonies and ways of expressing the virtues, if you will. But you're right. These are human virtues,
right,
across the board, right? So let's explain, Virginia, why don't you explain to our viewers why we only put 6 people in a workshop?
That's a great question. We do that because we want that intimate experience. We want to know who we're talking to. If we had 20, 30 people in our workshops at a time, how would we get through every question? How would we get through every concern, every thought when we have that beautiful, intimate 6-person group? Everyone can be heard. Everyone can get a chance to speak and ask their questions. And that's the beautiful thing with our small groups. Just that intimacy. You get to trust and be confident with that group and know that those people are all in the same place you are. We're all working towards the same goal, and we all have each other's back. The confidentiality in a smaller group also is so important because there's just less people then to, perhaps say something they shouldn't be saying as well. So confidentiality is big in our workshops as well. So a smaller group makes that a little more easy to do. So, yeah.
I've always managed to express that I don't believe we can do our personal work in a room full of people. So the conference was amazing. And I know there was a lot of work being done. I could see the light bulbs going on and people making decisions. And I even had one young man come up front. I had 4 or 5 people come up front to share how they were doing in the conference. And he said, well, I've only been here 2 days. I've already made a decision to quit drinking.
Wow.
See, so decisions were being made. But what I'm encouraging is there needs to be a follow-up and a safety net and a system where we can support people and keep them in their journey so that they can really do the work that they need to do. So that's another big reason, of course. And trust, it builds trust when people are in small groups. Dr. Susie, do you want to explain why we only work in 1-hour segments?
Well, I'll tell you, whenever you pick a topic that is something from your heart, whether you're dealing with your emotions or your spirit or even your health, that can be very intimidating for people. And it's easier to digest something one little bit at a time. We can't suggest that anyone will be able to change their outlook on life in any one particular session, but we can address one issue and deal with one thing. For example, when I was writing my book during COVID, I could only do it about 2 hours a night because dealing with painful issues of the past, it tears you up and it brings people to tears, which is again a reason why it's good to have a small group. But if you can say, you know what, I can handle this for 1 hour. I can handle this emotional turmoil for 1 hour. These people are going to support me in my feelings for 1 hour. Then you can take notes about it. You can later go back to it at your own leisure, but you can't bite off the whole cake in one sitting. You just have to take it in small bites.
Right. And in this particular process, the parenting, we want our parents to be able to pick up some tips and learn some concepts. And then they can go right into their home and they have a whole week. We only do 1 hour per week. And they can go back into their home and start practicing what they've just learned. And
Yes.
so in that way, excuse me, they experience immediate success. This actually works. So in that very large group, 200 people, I did give a couple of tips. And the first tip I gave was just go home and stop yelling. Now, how would that change things if we just had every parent out there not having or feeling the need to yell to be heard? How will that change things? What are your ladies' opinions on that?
I think that's amazing. People would start to look around the room and go, is mom okay? Is dad okay?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Your thoughts, Virginia, on that? What happens when they stop?
It would be peaceful. Children would be able to respond better. You respond better when you're not being yelled at. You are more willing to, we're more willing to work through the process when someone's not on our case and yelling at us all the time. And that's huge. I mean, when we think about it as adults, do we like to be yelled at? No. Are you going to work faster because you're yelled at?
No.
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 So,
good.
yeah.
And in a relationship, definitely not going to respond to that. Only in another, we come back the same way.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did at the conference as well is Gloria shared how to, and this is right out of our program, how to have a proper family talking circle. And again, invoking the Indigenous cultural aspect of that and how historical that is. I mean, that comes right out of their culture, and everything was always done in circles, and including talking with family. So we had an elder there, Mary, in her 90s probably, and she sat on the stage in her little skirt and just talked about her own upbringing with her mom, her parents, which was totally culturally sound at the time. And while she's talking, I shared this the other day in our meeting, her granddaughter was busy building a teepee right on the stage. And how a teepee is representation of women, and how strong women are, and how revered women were in the culture because they were considered the givers of life. So I told them, I said, your job as a dad is to teach your girls what a good man looks like. And mom, your job is to teach your sons how to respect women and what a good woman looks like. Because remember how difficult it would be. We parent the way we were parented. So I had two parents, but that doesn't mean it was always functional, right? I had two parents my whole life. So that was really fun to watch that and see how that teepee represents all aspects of a woman. And so those are the kinds of things that we can integrate into the program as well. And we've done a pretty good job so far. But that's where Gloria comes in. She's texting me and she's not able to get in, so I'm not sure what the problem is, but we'll have her on again. We can all come back again. I would love to do another show because each show will bring out something different. And we used, one of our workshops is called Promoting the 10 Virtues. Do you remember this one? And we have a list of words here, and some of them are actually direct virtues. So you're both parents. Your kids are, well, not fully grown yet, Virginia, but Matt is 16. And Susie, your girls are grown, but you have a little granddaughter. So a lot of in the culture, a lot of our kids are being brought up by their grandparents. So if mom is in treatment, or maybe there's no dad, or those cookums, that's the Cree word for grandmother, cookum, they take those children in and create that family for them. So that's really cool. There's so much we could talk about. I don't know where to go next. Do either of you have something you would like to share with the viewers? Just in your own experience of being a parent, what's been the most challenging thing for you bringing up your kids? What was the most difficult part for you?
Well, for me, when I was growing up as a little girl, I was not allowed to have any emotional response at all. So I felt like I was just a little bobblehead sitting in the corner, and I wasn't allowed to feel sadness or anger or anything. Basically, just sit down and be quiet and don't bother anybody. To the point that when my grandma died, I wrote in my journal, Nanny died yesterday. I can't go to the football game this weekend. Well, that just shows you there was a disconnect with any kind of feeling. Nanny just disappeared from the family and was never spoken of again. Then years later, when I was newly married, I found out that my grandpa died 6 months later after the fact. So there was no grieving or anything about that. It just showed the lack of emotional development that I went through as a child that I then carried into my marriage, and had a lack of emotional development on my children because I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't have the vocabulary for it. So
Right.
they suffered as a result of me not having those tools. And then they didn't have those tools. And then, the whole thing spirals down into more dysfunction.
Right. Totally. That's a great example. And I know that a lot of our clients are in that right now and never taught anything like that because it didn't exist in their world for generations.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia, what's been the most challenging thing for you as a parent?
For me, growing up in a household with addictions and going down that path myself as a mother was difficult. And when you're breaking promises to your children because your alcohol is more important, then you have to take a second look. So I been sober now for a few years, and it's helped me become a better mother because my child looks at me and he trusts what he sees. He knows that I'm going to be there for him. And that's the beauty of being able to make those decisions and control your life. And because you want better things, we want better things for our children. I think anybody, any culture, any race, religion, anything, we always want those better things for our children. And when they look at us and they can't rely on us or depend on us, who are they going to rely on and depend on? So my biggest challenge, and what I've taken from the parenting program so far, is praising my son by utilizing the virtues when he's doing something that's related to one of the virtues, instead of praising him for, oh, yay, you cleaned your room. So utilizing those words to show him that, what, he's so much more than what he may think he is too. But it just shows that process and teaches them about their virtues, the beauty of their virtues as well, instead of just things. So for me, that's been my biggest challenge as a parent. Teens aside, I mean, anyone who has teens is going through that. But being a sober parent makes it so much easier. And by utilizing the tips already in our parenting program, it makes you think as well as a parent about those virtues, and those virtues that you can see every day in your children. It's a beautiful thing. It's a lifelong thing that they will take with them and hopefully pass on to their children. So yeah.
Yes, we did also talk at the conference about the importance of not trying to buy your kids' love, because we think if we spend money on them or we take them places or we have these special treats, that this is one of the ways that you love. And we had a big discussion about that. And I shared a story when I was working in a community many, many years ago. I had, we wanted to pilot our youth program. And so here's something that's culturally different too. They don't call their youth teens. They're not teenagers, they're youth. They're the young people in our community. Because with that term of teenager, and I knew this from previous research I'd done on teenagers, that came out in the 50s. We weren't, my dad was never called a teenager. But if we were born in the 40s and 50s, that was 50s when it happened, teenagers. And what it did, it caused division. So that a teen was a separate alien kind of person. And it became us and them, right? And you'll hear that a lot about, well, if you have teens, you know what I'm talking about. But they were never referred to as teens. They still aren't. It's youth. young people in our community. So one of the things that on the legs of that was one of our sessions, the last one we did was actually about keeping dreams alive. And every kid has dreams. So our ability to imagine and dream and create, a lot of times children don't get those dreams supported. So that's one of the workshops that we talk about and how to do that. And I was going to share this story. I was doing this my core program, and I wanted to pilot my youth program. So we put it out to the community. We had 72 kids sign up. And I thought, well, I can't manage this all myself. So I hired 14 women in the community to help me. And I told chief and council, I'd like to do this. This is on my dime. This isn't going to cost the community anything. So we put those 72 kids in the workshop, the children's workshop and the youth workshop. And anyway, one evening they were waiting outside to come into the school. We met at the school. It was a warm evening, month of May, and this mom stomps on the playground and she's hollering and screaming, and she wants to talk to Laurie Davis. And who's this Laurie Davis anyway? And what's she doing here? And so I said, I'm Laurie Davis. May I help you? And she said, well, I want to know what's in those boxes. And what we had done, we had boxes especially made to fit the workbooks. So their workbooks were inside the box and they decorated the box. And I said, oh, we don't know what's in there. And she said, no, they told me they don't have to show me if they don't want to. And I said, that's correct. Because they were asking us things like, how do you spell alcohol? How do you spell sexual abuse? So we knew they were journaling about those things. So I told them, your workbook is private. So anyway, she was all upset. And I said, why are you so angry about that? I thought you'd be happy about that. Well, she said, I don't mind. She said that. What's really making me angry is last Easter, I've got 3 girls, little girls here. And last Easter, we bought them each a brand new bicycle for Easter. And they take better care of those boxes than they take care of those bicycles. And that's ticking me off. And I said, oh, so what are you realizing? I said, because you know what's in that box? Their life is in that box. Those virtues that you're talking about, Virginia, and encouraging those, that's what's in that box. And you see, they were already starting to value that more than the material stuff. And that was the only way that this mom, I'm thinking now, knew how to show love. Buy more stuff. We don't know any parents like that, do we?
Yeah.
What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, my experience was that my ex-husband, who raised our daughters, he was that kind of a person. He would try to give the girls gifts in lieu of letting them have emotional connections. He would try to buy off their loyalty or love, although we know it's not really love. And even to this day, my girls are adults, their dad will still use that carrot to drive their behavior. Oh, well, if you don't do this or that, then I'm not going to give you whatever for your birthday or Christmas. So still uses that.
Wow. And they're adults.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you know about that, Virginia? Stuff versus the virtues.
Yeah, guilt, an absolute form of guilt. I'm not good at this or I'm not good at that, so I'll just buy them. Or, if you work too much or you're away, or, it's guilt. You're feeling guilt instead of being there for those children, for your children, instead of being there, being present. You're buying presents, and they want you. They don't want stuff. They're going to take it, of course, but that's not what they want. They want you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want your things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, people that use gifts as a carrot to try to create some connection, they never get it. They never get it because they think that the bigger and the better the thing, the more appreciation they're going to get from their child when they're not getting any of it at all. It's just transactional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So that was that situation. Another workshop that we do in the process is, we talked about earlier, building confidence, and how to build confidence in our kids. And usually children don't have confidence because they are afraid. So let's talk about fear and how fear and judgment participate in the process of raising healthy kids. Because when we're afraid, that kills our confidence. So what do you know about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, confidence is everything. And you start when it's a baby. The baby doesn't know how to do anything. So whatever it is, you help them to take the tiniest little step, and then you praise them. Praise, 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 praise. And if they fall down, you don't berate them. So this is a healthy model. An unhealthy model would be like if the child makes a mistake, yelling at them, telling that they're no good. They couldn't do that. A person like them should never be able to ... You see? So that destroys confidence, and I'd say it's 10 times more damaging once you destroy the confidence in a child than it is to build it up into little tiny positive baby steps.
Yes, because we come with tons of it, right? Kids will say, I just want to grow, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a ballet dancer. Virginia, what do you know about that?
With fear, that is absolutely something we can pass on to our children as well. When we are afraid of things, we just instinctively want to protect them, and oh no, don't do that because I hurt myself, or you might hurt yourself. They're never going to learn. They're never going to grow if they can't go and be a child and experience those things. And we're there as parents to help them stand back up if they need that, and just to support them and guide them, because we don't want them to be fearful about life. We want them to love life, and we want them to live a full and, beautiful life. And so those fears that we have, the fear, I know in my home, my son had made a comment to me after I got sober, like his fear is that I'll start drinking again. So as a parent, I have to work hard on that. So he does not need to have that fear. I need to stay strong, and I need to stay on my path, because he does not need that fear at 16. He needs to be a 16-year-old and to enjoy all the things that a 16-year-old does. So that, in my home, that's what we work on. And I show him every day to be strong and to be powerful. And you can do anything that you want to do. And that's my goal, is just when he leaves this home, I want him to have that confidence to be able to go out and do anything he puts his mind to and succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the comments, well, it wasn't a comment, actually, it was part of my presentation when I spoke the first day, that, and this is right out of our retreat that we're going to do, Healthy Empowering Addictions Recovery, was that addictions don't begin with the first bottle of beer, and they don't begin with the first dose of drugs. They begin the day that we stop feeling good about who we are. And that, I said that out loud. Nobody threw me out of the room. This was a good thing. I said, addictions start the day you come home and you start to be on the receiving end of poor parenting and poor direction and poor guidance and poor role modeling. That's when the road to addictions begins. Mm-hmm. And it took them quite back. I don't know that they actually ever thought about it that way, but So I proceeded to do, and you're all familiar with the bucket exercise, and they drew holes in those buckets and they realized, wow, this is how far back did my addictions begin?
Mm-hmm.
And, this happened when I was 5 and this happened when I was 8. And they were quite taken back by that. And that is also one of our exercises right out of our workshop. We show the parents how to see where those things can come from and not to put any more holes in your kid's bucket.
Yeah.
Right?
That's extremely important. And I think you're right, Laurie. Some people might think it has to do with having a bottle of alcohol in the house or some pills in the house or something like that. But if the child is feeling whole and empowered, they don't need to look for that.
No, that's right. So that's called prevention. And I am advocating that we invest in our parents because they're the group that can impact the next generation. But they cannot impact the next generation if they don't have a toolkit
Mm-hmm.
and they're not well themselves, right? So
Right.
that's the basis of everything that we want to do. And I'm really thrilled that the two of you are on that team right now of people who are being trained up to deliver those workshops. It's massive. And I also learned that in this particular nation that I worked with there, 40% of their population is under the age of 18.
Wow.
40%,
Hmm.
right?
That's
So we have a lot of kids, and that's not just children in the homes. What about all the children that are in care,
mm-hmm.
foster care? We need to get to those foster parents so that they do a proper job.
Right.
Sometimes it's necessary to separate the families, but at the same time, where are you putting them? Somewhere place worse. And we've had our girls on here from Preserving Families here in Alberta, and they've got lots of stories to share. And I'm going to be speaking with them about all of this as well. So, all right. Anything else we want to say? We've got 3 sessions left, and each of you will be ready to go. And how are you feeling about that?
I think it's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no shortage of work.
No, never will be.
We won't live to see that, but it's
No.
what about you,
It's start
Virginia?
to
How are you feeling?
change.
Yes.
They say
that's right.
be the change, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Be the change.
It's going to feel good to utilize some of those tools that I've worked for over the years as well, and utilize these new tools and be able to support parents, grandparents, foster parents, anyone who is raising a youth, taking care of a youth, has youth around them, even aunties who take care, aunties, uncles.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an amazing tool to have under your belt and going forward when you have little people, big people in your world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think that bucket exercise that you just mentioned, Laurie, is huge, because I bet you could do that bucket exercise in any room, in any group, anywhere, and people would be blown away by the impact that those wounds of childhood or youth have on our adult life.
Absolutely. And I know that Susie and I are in the same decade together. And in our generation, it was all about children are to be seen and not heard. And so when you talked, Susie, about not being able to express our emotions, that's because we didn't have any, because we weren't allowed to have any. And I was told, little girls don't get angry, it's not polite. And then Christmas morning, we'd get up and we'd be so excited, doing a happy dance. And my mom would say, now just calm down. So we weren't allowed to be angry. We weren't allowed to be excited. We weren't allowed to be feeling disappointed. how many of us heard the saying, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about, right?
Mhm.
You hear that too, Virginia?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? See, because that stuff rolls down to the next
Mhm.
generation because it's inherited,
Ingrained.
right? And it's all entrenched in there. And so for a long time, I didn't really even have a voice
Mhm.
in my workplace, in my marriage. I just didn't have a voice.
Mhm.
I never knew
Well,
what to say,
yeah.
when to say it.
And you know what? Just a tiny little anecdote. When I was a young
Mm.
woman and I was working in the corporate world, you had to make out a list of what you wanted for the Christmas gift exchange. Well, I literally could not think of anything. I was so unconnected to what I liked, what I wanted, what I needed. I couldn't even come up with a wish list.
Wow.
But it was a little notice to me. It's like, whoa, that's an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. Totally.
Mhm.
So we're on the road to recovery. That's what I say.
Mhm.
This is a recovery product. And it's in the process of what happens when where our parents are actually learning ways and techniques and tips to help their kids. They're actually working on themselves at the same time. They don't realize that in the beginning. So actually, it's a healing tool. It's a learning tool. It's fun because this is another thing. A lot of people think that change has to be hard. If it's not hard, that I can't be changing. But change is fun, and change can be fun. And watching the success that I've seen in my parenting group that Gloria and I are working with, I can see the changes already
Hmm.
in the way that because we're getting feedback like, oh my gosh, I never thought that's how that looked, or I didn't realize when I didn't stick to my guns and say you can only have the iPad for an hour, and the hour is up, and then I go, oh, it's all right, you can have it for another half hour. I didn't realize that was building insecurity because now that little kid can't count on what you say. So even just that one thing, like you talked about, Virginia, broken promises.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you girls, but I've broken lots of promises to myself, even
Hmm.
saying I'm going to go for a walk every day and I don't go, and et cetera, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So I don't know that kids listen too well, but I know they don't do what we say, but they will do what we do,
Hmm.
right? And we see that. All right, in wrapping up, over to you. Thank you so much. I was kind of short notice. I wanted to do this today because we've got some things to follow up with next week, and I want to be able to use the show to send off as a tool for someone who wants to know more about what we're doing. And I'm going to be utilizing my show more and more and more and more to do that. Why not? I pay for the airtime, so I think I can do whatever I want. So, yeah. So thank you for being here. And over to you for any closing remarks or words of encouragement that you'd like to share with anybody out there who might consider stepping on and taking the workshops.
Well, I'd say that you're in the right place at the right time, Laurie, because parenting is where all modeling for a child begins. And so, even if a young person doesn't have their own children yet, but they're curious about, huh, my parenting model that I grew up with was probably not the greatest. So, I have no intentions of being a parent. Maybe they're scared because of what they've seen. But if they learn some of these skills, they'll see how easy and fun it is to change in just a few weeks with new realizations that they're coming to learn.
Good point. And that would be your license to be a parent.
Yes.
Virginia, over to you.
You won't regret it. You, working on anything that you do to better yourself as a person, anything that we do to better ourselves, it's worth it. It's priceless. Priceless. anything that helps us with our self-worth, our self-love, our self-care, it's priceless, and you will not regret stepping up into any of our workshops that we have available. None. You will not regret it.
There's no downside.
Right? Yeah. This is a one-stop shop here,
Right.
Absolutely.
And both of you girls have participated in other workshops as well. Would you like to share one that you experienced and maybe give it a little plug as we get ready to wrap up?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, my husband and I have loved the couples workshop. I think that was extremely useful in learning how to communicate better with your partner.
Cool.
Yeah, and for me, I just finished up number 99 out of 100 workshops with our 100 Shades of Entrepreneurship to help move my business forward. So any entrepreneur out there, there's so much. There's so many things, and you won't regret any of them. It's all amazing.
Thank you. A lot of people most people are probably, this is like a commercial now that I'm doing, but how much does it cost? People always have that question. So we have not had a price increase in our workshops in years. And once we went online, we were able to offer workshops very cost effectively. So to take the parenting workshops, it's $300. That's for 10 workshops in a room with a qualified facilitator, no more than 6 people in the room, so you get paid attention to. And we email you your worksheets so that when you're finished, you'd have a binder with your 10 workshops in there. You actually have like a resource manual. And we charge $300. Now, I thought about this after coming home from the conference. I went, $300. That is not just for that person in the workshop. Because if that mom or dad is in the workshop and they go home and start making those necessary changes, that's a $300 investment in a whole family. That's pretty darn inexpensive.
It is, especially when you think that it has generational consequences.
Oh, yes. So it's not just the kids that are here now, it's for next generation as well. And so those teachings are very important. We keep those alive, the 10 virtues, the medicine wheel, and those people out there who don't know anything about those things need to learn about those things, right?
Right.
I believe in cross-cultural education, so it gives us all a better understanding of each other's lives, and that's why my teams have always been multicultural. And as you said earlier, Dr. Susie, it is just a matter of the human element.
Right.
Ladies, I cannot thank you enough. Wasn't this fun? We kind of did our hit or miss in the beginning, getting everybody together. That's okay. I'll connect with the girls. We'll do another one because it'll be fun, I think, once we finish the 10 workshops to do a presentation on the 10 and how that is supporting us. So I'm Laurie Davis. You're listening to the Dr. Laurie Davis Show here on E360 TV and streaming live. And the only thing that we ask of you, if there was information here today that you know someone that can benefit from that, then please share the show. And yesterday in our 100 Shades workshop, we actually spoke about the fact that if we have good information, whether it's in the area of health, wealth, learning, self-improvement, we actually have a moral obligation to share that with other people. Otherwise, we're keeping a big secret, and why would we do that? So thank you so much, ladies, and we'll talk to everybody soon. So we'll give everybody a big wave and hang in with me for a few minutes after. I'd appreciate that. And we